M3 Lee. Some people claim this is the worst tank in World of Tanks, and some people are using this as a basis to ask, why did they build the M3 Lee at all? Well, we're here to answer that today, and we're going to look at the history of the M3 Lee, why it was built, and why in certain theaters of war, including the Asian theater, this was seen as not only a good tank, but it was preferred, even in some platoons, over its M4 Sherman counterpart. Please disregard the fact that I have a 105 howitzer on this thing, because I'm a fucking troll. So what was the M3 Lee? Why was it so weird, and why didn't they just mount the 75 cannon in the turret like normal people? Well, this was a stopgap tank. At the time of its introduction in the early 1940s, America didn't actually have a tank army. As a matter of fact, we didn't really have any tanks except for an M2 medium that was getting its ass royally handed to it by anything that looked at it funny. So we needed something, and we needed something bad. So what they did was they took the lower hull of the M2 medium, and then they just slapped the upper hull of what we now know as the M3 Lee on top of it. This is also why the turret is how it is. See, we also didn't really have much experience with mounting guns and turrets yet. Hadn't really gotten there. So they mounted the 37 anti-tank gun in there, and the 75 in the hull. With a crew of, I don't even think the game gets it right, because I'm pretty sure the crew complement is like, yeah, look at how the crew is in there. There is 6 people in this tank. In some variants at 7. The 7th person would be kind of in the middle though, so just getting kicked by everybody. So you had a commander who I believe also acted as the gunner for the 37mm. A loader? Oh no, I'm sorry, it did have its own gunner. And then you had the driver and gunner and loader for the 75. So, let's talk about why this tank isn't as bad as some people think. So, in World of Tanks and War Thunder and in pretty much any World War II fighting game, this tank is often seen as a joke. Why am I in this? Why would I be using this over the M24 Chaffee or the M4 Sherman or even a Sherman variant? Well, most Shermans weren't around yet, and neither was the Chaffee, I don't believe. We really didn't have a tank, and even if the Chaffee was around, again, I don't believe it was, but even if the Chaffee was around, it wasn't in great enough numbers, and it wasn't heavy enough to deal with a lot of what we were fighting in the Asian or European theaters in World War II, for that matter. Now, in the European theater, this thing got its ass kicked. Okay, it got ripped apart by Tigers, by Panthers, by Panzer IV4s, by even some Stugs had killed this thing. Hetzers were dealing with it. A lot of tanks were killing this. In the Asian theater, though, it was basically doing the exact opposite. It was kicking ass. And the reason why is because, see, the Asian theater really dealt in more island hopping than just like these huge sprawling masses of land. So a lot of the times the troops landing had to have a lighter tank that could fit the bill. Now, yeah, the Sherman could do this, but a lot of platoons still had their M3 Lees, and the M3 Lee was more than capable of dealing with the Japanese armor. Heck, we had some troops knock out so-called Japanese medium tanks, or even so-called Japanese heavy tanks, which were just upgunned mediums, with rifle grenades and with just Molotovs, and then this thing comes along. It's basically unstoppable. To the Japanese armor, it also was really good at bunker busting, which was really handy because the Japanese did that a lot. So, Sarge, you may ask, if this thing was so great, why the hell does it suck in every game? Well, in World of Tanks, it's because you can't use that 37mm, and it's going up against, again, tiers of its kind. World of Tanks has a kind of a different way of doing things than history did. This thing wouldn't be going up against, say, it's a tier 5, the OI experimental we pretty much never saw. It might see the Type 3 Chi-Nu, but it was very often against something like these. The Type 95 Heavy, the Type 5 Ka-E-Ho, and the Type 1 Chi-He. Now, to be fair, these are all tier 4 vehicles. But Japan really, I mean, they could be going up against these little tier 2, these rink-a-dink boys. Oh, I'm sorry, 3. I don't have my glasses on, don't at me. And everyone's like, oh, well, if they had, like, I'm just using Type 4 Heavy. Type 4 Heavy, for example, the M3 Elite wouldn't have been considered. Well, no, but, again, Japan didn't have these tanks. And by the time they even had the delusions of grandeur of these tanks, they'd been firebombed so hard it was very unlikely they were going to be able to produce them. The OI experimental was like, I think they built a prototype, but it was never deployed in mass numbers. The OI was never deployed. None of these super heavies were ever even considered. If they had been, they probably actually wouldn't have been that good. They're slow, they have a lot of flat armor. Flat armor sucks. And the more astute of you might go, I sense a fallacy, because you see flat armor all over the M3 Elite. Yeah, I'm not saying it was a perfect tank. Again, it actually got its ass kicked a lot in the European theater. But it also did a lot of ass kicking in the Pacific theater. Now the Japanese had ways of knocking these out. They like to set them on fire. And they really liked the trapping them in a pit where they couldn't get out of and just trying to get in and kill the crew. I think that worked a few times, and then of course they had their own anti-tank weapons that they would just throw at this thing. But two of those options are kind of situational, and the last one, this thing has, I think, 2 coaxial machine. Yeah, I thought this was weird. Yeah, it has 2, like the commander's Capula, he can fire that fully enclosed, so you're in a lot of trouble. In World War II, that was a big deal. So let's take this thing into battle and see how it compares to our now known hello, Hazak. Is this 9 law online? What on earth did you just say? Oh well. I'm going back into my spiel about the M3. Let's see how this thing does in a live battle on World of Tanks. Very unlikely we'll go against a Tiger. Common weak points were like those side doors that you see in the ass and the back of the turret, and the commander's Capula. That was a big one. Now, what M3 commanders really like to do is get their tanks in a kind of weird, kind of armor scrapey position where they would go like, I'll do it in the beginning somewhere here where I'm not going to get shot at. I'll probably just do it on these. I don't know. Or these. Whatever's easier. I'm not going to show my ass too much. So, since this is port, and we're over here, I kind of want to go down to, say, inch 8, and see if we can get to this. That's total loss. So what they'd like to do, yes, so, they'd like to put a tank like this, pretty much so you can't hit this side, and this side can hit you. That's something that was actually a lot in the war. Oh, I'm going. I said I wanted to go this way. So, what was this tank primarily used for historically? Well, bunker busting actually. Didn't see much anti-tank fighting, but there was some. See, that's something that we will be fighting is Chiha over here. Shout out to now. Some people will say that this tank is utterly useless in this game, and to an extent, I agree. In certain situations, this map is not one of them. I've got plenty of places to hide, and plenty of ways to sneak around. Oh, he just shot at me. So let's move on here. Whoop. That was not bad. Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that. But kill us. Ooh, yeah, I died. But I made a really bad mistake there. And see, again, no tank is going to be as good in games as in history. And that sounds like a really odd statement. Let me preference that. I can actually preference this very well. As soon as I get back to my garage. Where are you? I have a lot of premiums. Don't at me. The Tiger 1 was not fighting other, what we would call equal tanks. It was fighting shit like the M4 Sherman and the M5A1 Stewart and the M24 Chaffee in some instances. I don't think the Chaffee really was around during World War II all too much. I'm pretty sure it was a post-World War tank. But, yeah, it really was not it wasn't going against other heavies, really. And, like, the Churchills, that did see it, those things were so incredibly slow and poorly angled in terms of armor that this thing would commonly take them out. But the Tiger wasn't really all that prevalent either. Like, yeah, I mean, they had them. Had 1,800 of them, I think. 1,800 or somewhere around there. And the King Tiger was even more rare. I'm pretty sure they only had a few hundred of these. But, I just wanted to share my thoughts on the M3 Lee and tell you guys that historically, yeah, this was a pretty good tank. So let's go out into another battle. I really wasn't trying that time. I also don't have my glasses on, so, you know, I'm using auto aim because me without my glasses would be tragic. I mean, it would just be totally... Did you hit? Yeah, the fucking wall 30 feet to the right of them. You didn't hit the actual target, if that's what you're asking, because, you know, of course you didn't hit the damn target. So what is this? This is a tier 4 battle. This is a perfect battle to explicitly show, this tank didn't suck as well. We have to take and hold the marked objective. But, you know, let's take a shot. Ah. Actually, what was it like in this tank? It was probably cramped a little bit. It definitely got hot. There were 6 people in the space. And, yeah, it probably was kinda shit. Not even gonna lie. Wait for the German. is slowing down. We are going to catch up. I have made this my mission to kill this time. Ah, well, mission failed. The other guy can't the other. But hey, do that. He still did 109 damage. And this is because we just drive. But in that case, yeah, the Type 95 did knock me out, and there were Japanese tanks like the Type 95 that could knock the Lee out. I'm not saying they didn't have any option, I'm just saying weren't as many as in the European theater, and in that niche, yeah, them three kind of thrived. Total, yeah, it did get phased out. M4 is clearly better and way more versatile. But hey, kind of a neat piece of history about the M3 Lee. If you guys want to stick around till I believe the 28th, Sapphire is going to be doing a live stream of something. I'm not sure. So you're in for a treat there. And I'll see you on the next Sarg's Recap.